pick up back with Deity and Divinity, right?
Yes, we already are in this the first session. So I'll start and
Okay.
yeah. Okay, today, October 24th, 2024, it's our 68th meeting, reading Urantia Book with Heidi. We keep reading the forward, this section 1, Deity and Divinity. And hopefully we are going to proceed to the second section, God. 今天呢是2024年10月24号，是我们的第68次与海蒂读玉书读书会。我们应该会把前言的第一节神灵和神性读完，应该是会开始读第二节神。Okay, Heidi, I'm turning over to you.
Okay. Do you think we were at I know we read that we were reading in section 1, Deity and Divinity. Okay, so we're in the as Ricky said, we've decided to read the forward before we read the Supreme, right before the Jesus Christ papers. We decided to go back and read the forward to get a better understanding before we read this about the Supreme, which is also a tricky thing to read about. So we're brave soldiers and we're reading the forward. But where were we? Do you remember what paragraph we're at?
沈丽是不是在1.12那个地方？
我们应该读完了 Supreme 这
Yeah, I think we're at Supreme.
We should start from Ultimate.
Okay, we read Supreme.
I think, yeah.
Okay, I'll just read Supreme real quickly, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So we were so the 1, 2, 3. So the third or fourth paragraph in the section 1, Deity and Divinity, in the forward, where it has a list of 7 qualities of deity. And we were going through them last week when we had to stop. So we definitely read the first 5, probably the first 6. So the first one, number 1 is static, number 2 is potential, number 3 is associative, number 4 is creative, number 5 is evolutional. These are qualities of deity and divinity. Qualities of deity and functions. Also, number 6 is supreme. Number 7 is ultimate. So the number 6 supreme is self-experiential and creator and creature-creator unifying deity. Oh yeah, I remember we read this. Yeah, deity functioning on the first creature identification level as time-space over-controllers of the grand universe, sometimes designated the supremacy of deity. Did you want to say something? Oh, okay.
I have to translate.
对，
就像我们就是本来是要读那个神之至高者嘛，但是里边概念蛮多的，那么伙伴就提出来这些概念呢，在前言当中都解释了，所以我们就回头读前言，然后这样的话对一些基本的概念有了解了，然后再去读神之至高者会容易一些。上一次呢是第一次读前言，我们读了介绍的部分，然后呢还读了一部分这个第一节神灵和神性啊，然后呢上一次读神灵和神性哈，它这个神灵在人格、准人格、超人格层次上运作，它这7个层次啊，然后是第一层次是静止的，然后第2是潜在的，第3层次关联的，第4是创造的，第5是进化的，第6是至高的，第7是终极的。那么这7个我们大概进行到是至高的，神之至高者这一部分。这个神之至高者呢是自我体验和受造物造物者合一的神灵。 然后呢，今天大概要从终极神之终极者这一节开始读。OK，
Okay. I'm so sorry. I forgot we were
that's
translating.
okay. That's okay. Yeah, doesn't matter long or short. I can adjust. I'm more and more, kind of, accommodated to your speed.
Supreme. You're more and more of a supreme translator.
Experientially, toward better, not perfect, but better.
So the supreme is what we're going to read about after this, and it's one of the most interesting things in the Urantia book. The ultimate is interesting too, but it's almost beyond our comprehension.
这个神之至高者呢，在《玉然下之书》当中是一个很特别的概念，对。
终极者是超越我们的理解的。
神之至高者，Heidi, are you muted? We cannot hear you.
I think I must have been. I don't know. I must have been. I don't remember muting my. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear it now.
I don't know how that happened because I didn't mute myself. Did you hear me when I said the supreme is one of the most interesting things in the Urantia book, the supreme aspect of deity?
对，神灵的至高者这个方面哈，就是《玉然下之书》很有趣的这个论述。
Because the ultimate is fascinating too, but the ultimate is almost beyond our comprehension.
对，终极者也是很有趣，但是呢，有可能超越了我们的理解。
Because the supreme aspect of God, deity is everything and knows everything, and the only thing that deity, there's experience is the one thing that you can't have without experiencing, without going through. You can't be experiential. You can only experience.
这个就是神呢，当然他就是我们假设他是全能者，而不是全知者。但是呢，这个神灵呢，他也还必须要怎么样获得经验？他必须要经历什么，他才能获得经验？
There are beings in the universe that they're born perfect, and they're born phenomenally, well, even deity, phenomenally intelligent and wise and all-knowing, but they only have to acquire, you can only acquire experience. It can't be given to you or bestowed upon you.
对，确实宇宙当中有些存有啊，生来就是完美。你包括这个神灵，他都是全知的，但是他的经验也必须要是获得性的，不能够被赠予。
So even deity gains and expands from experience in one way.
对，就是神灵也要获得这个经验的扩展。
Or so one aspect of deity is that deity has made this time-space creation, and then is engaged in the experience of it. is part of it, is part of its experience, is experiencing it with us.
对，那么他这个神灵呢，这个创造了这个时空哈，就是为了跟我们一起来进行体验，参与体验。
So just like everything that happens to us affects us, this supreme aspect of deity is allowing everything that happens in time and space to affect it.
对，就像发生的一切事情都会影响到我们，那么那个神灵哈，就是允许一切的发生啊，允许这一切好像就是对我们产生效应。
So the deity, the supreme deity, becomes a co-creator with us because we are finite material beings and we are affecting and co-creating the finite material time space reality, and the supreme deity is doing that with us. So what we do affects the supreme as much as, I don't know to what extent, but everything we do has an effect on the supreme and on the time space reality because we are part of its evolution. It's not evolving by itself, it's evolving with billions and billions of will creatures evolving in time and space.
这个挺长的，那个就是我们这些的有限的存有是跟这个神之至高者一起，就是神之至高者哈，他是跟我们一起都是共同创造者，就是我们这些有限的存有物质存有，就是它就是也会影响那个时间空间的实相，那么所以它也就影响神之至高者，会对神之至高者的进化产生影响。就是这个时空的实相呢，是这个进化的一部分。意志受造物就跟那个拥有这个自由意志的受造物，就是一起的一个共同的创造和进化的过程。
But we're not just evolving in time and space because we have will and because all of these billions of creatures have will and make decisions. That's a big part of it. It's also evolving itself. It's like the way nature and planets evolve by themselves without will, just scientific evolution. So that kind of evolution is also unique to time and space because God created the central universe in perfection. It doesn't evolve. It was created perfect. The time-space universes evolve just while civilization and socialization and religion and all these things evolve simultaneously through mortal and creature decisions. So both types of evolution are happening in time and space, and the supreme is affected by all of it, is part of all of it.
对，它大概的意思就是时空，因为这个意志受造物，它就是那个在这个宇宙当中它是进化的，然后当然就是好像就是自然是不是也进化，但是它是纯粹科学意义上的进化，不是那种意志受造物的进化。 那么中央宇宙就不进化，因为它已经是完美的但是就是时空宇宙呢，还有包括这个意志受造物它所形成的这些的社会系统文明系统它是进化的。
So deity unifies everything in the master universe is unified by deity, but the supreme, which is experiencing time space with us, is, they say, is creature creator unifying deity. So it's particularly involved with unifying evolutional time space beings with deity.
Oh. 然后神之至高者呢，通过他这个在时空当中的经验，然后统一了这个受造物和造物者。
Okay, number 7, ultimate. Self-project. So all of these are self. So number 1, static, is self-contained. Number 2, potential, is self-willed. Number 3, associative, is self-personalized. Number 4, creative, is self-distributive. Number 5, evolutional, is self-expansive. Supreme is self-experiential. 7, ultimate, is self-projected. And the reason that they're all self-contained, self-willed, is because unlike everything in the universe that was created by God, God either created himself, deity, either created itself or determines everything themselves. So when we describe deity, we have to explain that it's self-willed, self-personalized, self-distributive, because deity is the first source and center. So we can't attribute qualities of deity to anything except deity.
对，它就是描写神的时候，你看从第一个层次到这些，现在第7个全都是自我性的，比如说静止的是自我包含的、自我存在的，然后潜在的呢是自我意志、自我意向的，那么关联呢是自我人格化的，创造的呢是自我分发的，进化呢是自我扩展的，然后至高性的是自我体验和受造物造物者合一的。那么终极者呢，这个地方它用的是自我投射。那么就是因为这宇宙当中除了神之外，其实是没有别的。那么他都是他相当于创造他自己嘛，然后他们自己有可以做决定。所以它是指第一本源和中心。所以他描述这些的特性的时候，都是以自我为开始的。那么，have you read Ultimate the 7th paragraph yet?
No,
Because we haven't.
No, I'm going to read it right now.
Oh, okay.
So number 7, ultimate, self-projected and time-space transcending deity. So the let me just read it first. Deity, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. Deity functioning on the 2nd level of unifying divinity expression as effective over-controllers and absent upholders of the master universe. As compared with the ministry of the deities to the grand universe, this absent function in the master universe is tantamount to universal over-control and super sustenance, sometimes called ultimacy of deity.
沈丽，你要不要你？
好的， 终极的，即自我投射和超越时空的神灵，全能、全知和全在的神灵，作为主宇宙的有效总控制者和觉现支撑者，在统一神性表达的第二层次上运作的神灵，与神灵对大宇宙的侍奉相比，主宇宙中的这种觉现功能，相当于宇宙总控制和超级维持，有时被称为神灵终极者。
So now we're when the Urantia book uses a word that's not used in our language, that's because we don't have a word in our language. They have to make up a new word because we don't even have a word that comes close. So I'm talking about the word absinthe.
对，有点像之书啊，当传达的时候，它尽量的是用英文当中的词汇就是然后有的是用现有的词汇给新的定义，但是如果这个词汇库当中的确找不到相应的词，那么会造一个新词。那在这个里边出现了那 absinthe 就是这样的一个新词。
I'm just yeah, I just looked it up to make sure because I always assumed it was a Urantia book word, but I never actually looked it up. Yeah, we don't I'm looking it in it's not in the dictionary. So
对，它是个绝现，对，就这个新的词是表达这个无限和有限之间的这种这个就是过渡这个阶段绝现。
So the word absinthe is hard for us to understand because it's not even in our dictionary. We don't even have a word for it.
对，这个在字典当中是没有的。
Now number 6, the supreme was the first creature identification level of as time-space overcontrollers. So the ultimate is the second level of unifying divinity expression as effective overcontrollers.
对，这个神之至高者，他是受造物识别第一层次上运作的神灵。那么神之终极者呢，他是在统一神性表达第二层次上运作的神灵。
So the supreme is the creature identification level, the overcontroller of the grand universe, whereas the ultimate is the overcontroller and absinthe upholder of the master universe.
对，就是神之至高者，他是大宇宙的时空总控制者。那么神之终极者呢，他是主宇宙的有效总控制者。
Now remember, the grand universe is the created, evolving universe. The 7 super universes, paradise, the central universe, Havona. The master universe is the grand universe plus everything around it. These outer space unfolding. These universes, outer space that are just being formed. They're not really formed yet. The master universe consists of everything that exists. The grand universe is the settled, designed, and planned evolving universes, the 7 super universes around paradise.
对，那么这个大宇宙哈 ，Grand Universe 就是已经就是说被这个被计划呀，那个设计啊，已经就是有生命存在啊，那样这样的就是宇宙。那么主宇宙的概念就是这个大宇宙加上那些还没有被开发、被计划。 被设计的外层空间，正在形成的外层空间。那么这个是就这地方说那个主宇宙就是神之终极者，神灵终极者，就是有效总控制者，作为有效统控制者的这个范围。
So the supreme is the experiential aspect of deity, whereas the ultimate is the transcendent deity, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, what we think of as deity, being everywhere, knowing everything, being all powerful.
对，那么神之至高者呢，他是经验层次的神灵。那么神之终极者呢，他是属于超越的神灵，他是全知全在全能的。
When we think of the supreme, we're not thinking of the aspect of deity that is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, because the supreme is the aspect of deity that's not all powerful, all knowing, and all present. It's the part of the supremacy of, it's the part of deity that is actually changing and growing and evolving along with us.
对，当我们说到神之至高者的时候，我们就是指的他这经验部分嘛。我们不说他全知全在全能，因为他是跟我们这些的凡人受造一起进化的，一起在发展变化当中的。
So when we think of the aspect of deity that's operating alongside us, very closely involved with this reality that we are in time and space, that's what we call the supreme. But the ultimate transcends time and space, and that's why that's when we get into an absonite reality, because it's something that we don't experience. We can experience it, but we don't experience it enough to even have a word for it yet. We rarely transcend time and space in the finite world we live in. So absonite is transcendence of time and space.
对，就是神之至高者呢，他是跟我们肩并肩一起进化的。那么他就是那个在时间空间的这个实相当中，就跟这个实相比较接近。那么神之终极者呢，他是相当于超越了时间和空间，所以他那个实相就是局限的实相。那么我们呢，因为是时空塑造物嘛，我们很难去体验理解这样的超越时空的这种实相。
So it says, as compared, we're talking about the ultimate, as compared with the ministry of the deities to the grand universe, this absonite function in the master universe is tantamount to universal over control and super sustenance, sometimes called the ultimacy of deity.
这个第七这个终极的最后一句哈，与神灵大宇宙的神灵对大宇宙的侍奉相比，主宇宙中的这种觉现功能，相当于宇宙总控制和超级维持，有时被称为神灵终极者。
So they're both they both involve ministry, deity ministry to the universe, but one is the grand universe, one is the master universe. supreme is the time space universe, ultimate is the transcending time and space in the absonite reality of the master universe. So we can leave it at that.
对，那么这两个都是进化的神灵，一个是直司大宇宙，一个直司这个主宇宙这个大宇宙的时空的，另外主宇宙的呢超越了时空的，可以先理解到这儿。
And now the next 3 paragraphs explain the finite level, the absonite level, and the absolute level, which is even, the absolute level is even beyond the absonite, which is really hard for us to understand.
然后下3段呢，它就是分别解释呢有限层次的实相然后绝限层次的实相的特点呢，然后是绝对层次是什么样子的，是这个，对，他给出分别的论述。
So I'll read these. They're short paragraphs. So I'll read these 3 paragraphs, and then Shenli can read them.
Heidi, I have a question.
Sure.
So could you explain a little bit about this self-project? What does that self-project mean? Is it very close to this time-space transcending?
Well, remember I was explaining that when they're describing these functions of deity, they start each one with self. So they say static, self-contained, potential, self-willed, right? So the ultimate, are you talking about this, the ultimate self-projected?
Yeah, I just wonder. Yeah, the self-projected. What does that mean?
Let me think. Self-projected and time-space transcending, self-projected. See, I'm telling you, when it comes to the absonite, it's hard for us to understand what they're talking about.
Yeah. I was wondering that is it related to like because you don't have to create, so you just project himself and in the outer space.
Let me just think, because let's see, this self-contained, self-willed, self-personalized, self-distributive, self-expansive, self-experiential, self-projected. Yeah, I mean that's not something I've ever heard anyone talk about anything being self-projected, but it's very Urantia booky. But
yeah.
Self-projected. I mean, when something is projected, it's like, shot out, a bullet is projected into the atmosphere, so it's sort of like
it's like you don't need to go through this creation process, you just project something like that. So that's why it's like time-space transcending.
Yeah, I think it might mean something like the deities decide to push themselves to the outer limits to transcend time and space. Like it's self-willed, but it's an action that they perform,
Okay.
Like they're not just experiencing it. They're not just, they're not just personalizing themselves. In this case, they're projecting themselves to another, to beyond, because it's beyond the grand universe to the master universe. So they're projecting themselves all the way to infinity. I mean,
okay.
I don't think that's a very good explanation, but it's the best I can do.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think I just wondering, but I think
no, it's a great question because it's, who the hell knows what it means really, but we can only guess. I can only guess.
Yeah. I think so, yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
对，这个大概我觉得可能读了赛斯资料哈，对这个也许 也许我就这么猜，因为我也没读赛斯早期课，可能读了
我想起来，就是他说那个上父他也是天堂的支撑者，他是就是创造者也总控者，他也是天堂支撑者。那这个终极者他也有类似的功能，他就好像把神灵的这些能力直接投射到就是主宇宙中一样，我感觉是这样子的。
就是没有掺杂，没有妥协，不是说你看像那个像曹正他进到我们里面，他也服从我们的意志干啥干啥。这个根据刚才那个 Heidi 的解释，他就直接就像一个子弹一样，唰就射出去了，就是 beyond the limit，就是没有限制的。对，他就是不跟我们这些凡人受造养生受造物有任何的妥协，他就是直接，他也不是单纯的体验，哎，他就是直接就这样投射出去。
对，就感觉它就是上父的在天堂岛的功能，它就直接投射到主宇宙，就一模一样的职能上是非常类似的。
嗯哼，对，我们这个可以先放在这里。对，那个，因为它都是用的是那个 self 嘛，这7个，那么我们可以慢慢的因为这个就是一个总纲，就是慢慢的咀嚼，然后它的每一层次，就神灵的它的每一个层次，自我的这个特征、特性、功能，然后在以后的再进一步的更仔细的学习当中，也许会有更多的体会。这一部分是它的分发的功能，这一部分是它扩展的功能，这一部分是它投射的功能，可能慢慢的会有一些更具体的一个印象。Eric，我们就慢慢读，然后可能会有
对，我也同意。对，
理解更多。
哼，
现在因为太抽象了嘛，对啊。OK，Heidi。
So I looked up the word project, and here's what it says. To devise in the mind, design, to plan, figure, or estimate for the future, to throw or cast forward, thrust. I'll let you translate because you know. Ricky, can you hear me?
Yes, divine mind estimate. What? I didn't catch the first.
I know it's hard.
Yeah, I caught the second part. You said 往前面去投射。I got the second part, but I didn't get the first part.
The first one was number 1, to devise in the mind, design.
那就是在头脑当中的设计啊。
And B, that was A, and B is to plan, figure, or estimate for the future.
就是计划数字啊，然后为未来做一些估算呢。Yeah.
I mean,
对，就是三种意思嘛。第一个是在头脑里边计划酝酿，第二个就是为未来那个做一些就是数字上的估计，第三种就是往前面去投射，无理性的，就是往前面扔，往前面投射。
那这里是 plan 的意思，还是这里可能是不是投射的意思，是 plan 的意思，计划，为未来计划意思。因为这个 ultimate 它神之终极者，它就是未来的神灵。
对，因为他要往那个 outer space 去发展嘛。
对，它是 master universe，就是我们现在超级宇宙嘛。那就是外部空间还没有开始，它是未来的。那这里的 self-projected 是不是 plan 的意思，不是投射的意思？
Heidi, Shirley have very good point that self-projected here is kind of more like device in mind design and kind of plan for the future because the God, the ultimate is kind of over controller for the master universe, see the master universe, including a grand universe and outer space. And outer space has not been developed yet. That's why, he can project or plan or devise, how the outer space can be developed. So it might be more like design rather than task forward.
Yeah, it might be that they might be using it, using that meaning of the word, which would make a lot of sense.
对，他也同意，有可能这个就是他这个地方的意涵。因为他是未来之神嘛。
对，那就是一个自我规划，他实际上自己做了一个未来的规划。
Yeah.
That makes the most sense, I think.
Yeah.
对，因为之前对翻译的时候也有想说，它应该是一种规划、计划的意思，不是光投射的意思。
对，投射确实不太好理解。就是
不过保持这个投射在这儿也好。然后呢，就是实际上呢，这就是为什么我们就是读这本书一定要跟英文这边弄，因为这样英文的它可以查字典呢，一查有这3个意思，这个地方我们就知道自我投射大概就是说抽象的意义是什么样子的。但是如果我们只是读中文的部分的话，不管我们说自我计划还是说自我投射，我们就不可避免的受这个中文它的语言的限制，而失去了了解它原文有可能是包含哪些意涵的机会。所以我就认为，就是不管哪一个将未来的，当然就是读书会的伙伴，也是要注意，就是说争取你即使你不读英文的部分，但是一定要把它搁在这一面。当有些词语有一些的迷惑的不解的时候，就可以参照原文去了解，千万不要只读中文。这个就是我对未来读者的或者现在读者的一个深切的体会。因为对我来说，我只能就是两边都有，我才能稍微读懂一些。但是只读中文或者只读英文，可能对我来说就比较困难，这是我的经验。
对，其实我也觉得就是一定要对照，就算你不念英文，也是摆在旁边，偶尔时候可以看一下这样。
对，他一定是会帮我们就是理解。Yeah, Heidi, we were talking about that's why it's important to when we read the Urantia book, we always have, even we already have a Chinese translation, we always have to have the English version aside. So we can, when we are confused on certain concept, we can refer back to what, how many meanings in that particular English words. So we kind of gain more in-depth understanding or giving more conjecture.
Right, as opposed to the translator. Yes,
because the different language, the words have multiple meanings. In English it's multiple meaning, in Chinese it might be.
I only read a few. It has even more, but I only read a few.
Yes, and also our multiple meaning may not necessarily correspond to your multiple meanings in that particular word. That might cause confusion and misunderstanding. So we always should have to refer back to the original language. Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually reading the Bible right now in a different translation that translates it differently than most Bibles. It's more accurately translated, and it's different than the Common Bible, and it explains why they use certain words and how they were mistranslated, because it went from Aramaic to Greek to Latin to English, so it's fascinating how things change in translation.
对，他说他这也是有同意。那么他说他正在读圣经，然后这个他就是有读那个，就是当然就是不同版本，他发现可能有很大的不同。那么他读的这个比较最准确的翻译的是圣经，它里边它会有解释，就是从阿拉伯语、希腊语翻到拉丁语系的这些过程当中，好像就是这个就是比较这些不同的这个就是他就发现就是的确会有很大的不同，这个译本。
you know, the Bible was written in Hebrew, but people at the time of the New Testament, you know, which is the life of Jesus, the Old Testament is the Torah, the Jewish religion before Jesus. At the time of the New Testament, people didn't speak Hebrew, they spoke Aramaic. So we're starting off with a book that was written in a language that common people didn't even speak. And then they translated it into Greek, and then Latin, and then English. So you can see how, and different translators made different decisions along the way. And sometimes they were political decisions. Sometimes they decided to just say virgin, to call Jesus' mother a virgin when the original said she was a young woman. That changed the whole idea of Christianity, saying that he was born from a virgin when the original text said he was born from a young woman. A young woman and a virgin are two different things.
对，那么旧约呢，它是说希伯来语写的，是那个就是犹太人就是尊奉的 Torah。那新约呢，它是用 Arabian，不知道那是什么语言写的。那么后来转译成希腊语，转译成拉丁文啊，转译成英文啊，这个过程。那么有一些的定义，它就会有的时候它就会给你政治意义的决定，然后翻译成什么东西。你比如说原文那个耶稣的母亲哈，她是一个 virgin， 这个本来她的原文的意思就是一个年轻的女性，结果呢，在现在我们读的版本当中说她是一个处女，你说她从一个处女生的，这就跟原文就很不相同了，可以说很大的歧义。
Okay, so I'll read Shenley, I'll read these three little paragraphs and then you can read them. The finite, the absonite, and the absolute. Okay.
Yeah.
The finite level of reality is characterized by creature, life, and time-space limitations. Finite realities may not have endings, but they always have beginnings. They are created. The deity level of supremacy may be conceived as a function in relation to finite existences. The absonite level of reality is characterized by things and beings without beginnings or endings, and by the transcendence of time and space. Absoniters are not created. They are eventuated. They simply are. The deity level of ultimacy connotes a function in relation to absonite realities. No matter in what part of the master universe, whenever time and space are transcended, such an absonite phenomenon is an act of the ultimacy of deity. The third one is the absolute level is beginningless, endless, timeless, and spaceless. For example, on paradise, time and space are non-existent. The time-space status of paradise is absolute. This level is Trinity attained existentially by the paradise deities, but this third level of unifying deity expression is not fully unified experientially. Whenever, wherever, and however the absolute level of deity functions, paradise, absolute values, and meanings are manifest.
有限层次的实相之特点是受造物生命和时空限制。有限的实相可能没有尽头，但它们总是有开端，即它们是被创造出来的。至高者的神灵层次可设想为涉及有限存在的职能。觉现层次的实相之特点是无始无终的事物和存有，以及对时空的超越。觉现者不是被创造出来的，他们是终归化的，即他们本来就是。终极者的神灵层次意味着涉及觉现实相的功能，无论在主宇宙的哪个部分，每当时空被超越时，这种觉现现象就是神灵及终极者的行为。绝对层次是无始无终、无时无空的。例如，在天堂，时间和空间是不存在的，天堂的时空状态是绝对的。这是天堂神灵在存在上达到三位一体的层次，但这个统一神灵表达的第三层次，在经验上并未完全统一。神灵的绝对层次，无论何时，无论何地，无论如何运作，天堂绝对的价值和意义都会显现出来。
Okay. So we can see that the finite level is easy for us to understand because that's where we live, that's where we exist. The absonite level is harder for us to comprehend. The absolute level is almost impossible for us to comprehend.
对，那么我们最容易理解的就是有限层次嘛，因为这就是我们的实相的所在的层次。觉现层次呢有点难，然后呢，这个绝对层次呢，绝对是已经超过我们能理解的那个范围。
But we can try.
可以试一下。
Remember, this book was written for a future era. They wouldn't have written it unless they believed that at some point people would be able to understand it.
那对，因为这本书写给未来时代的，那么如果他写出来，一定是相信我们就是人类，他在一个阶段他能理解的。
And again, there are people right now on this planet who can understand this much better than I can.
对，这星球上一定是有很多人，他的理解这个书的那个比我要理解的好。
Okay, so the finite level of reality, we understand it's characterized by creature life and time-space limitations. Finite realities may not have, finite realities may not have endings, but they always have beginnings. They are created. So that's us. Ourselves as identities have a beginning. When we're born on earth, that's our beginning. Now, our thought adjuster, the spirit of God that's in us, has no beginning. That God fragment that lives within us operates on an absolute level, has no beginning. But we as a whole have a beginning, but we don't necessarily have an ending. So we can understand that. We can understand the concept of living forever.
对，它这个地方说，就是有限层次的说，有限的实相可能没有尽头，但它们总是有开端。有限实相，就比如说我们这个凡人作为一个人出生在这个地球上，它是有一个开始的。当然，在我们里边那个神的片段，像讨论者，它是没有开端的。
So the Urantia book tells us that whatever level you evolve to, you still have the ability to function or experience the levels below you. So for instance, we can't see mighty messengers, which are super evolved mortal beings, spirits that were once mortals, but they can see us because they once operated on our level.
对，那么对，那么就是我们就从低到高的这样去进化嘛。那么我们就是进化到高层的时候，我们仍然能够，对我们所来的这低的层次，它还是能够，覆盖和有感觉的。你比如说那强大使者，那么他是从我们凡人往上进化的这么一个存有，他是可以看到我们体验我们所在的这个层次的。
So even though mighty messengers are not visible to us, we are visible to them because you retain the ability to see and experience the levels that you have evolved from. So there's once you go through something, you don't evolve past it and then have no connection to it. You can't see it anymore because you're too much of a spirit. It doesn't work that way. You can still see it because there are high spirit beings who cannot see us, but because they were created as high spirit beings, they don't need to see physical beings, but mighty messengers and very highly evolved mortals who are now very highly placed spirit beings, they went through the physical. They can always still see it.
对，那就像那个灵性存有它对我们就是不可见的，但是呢，像强大使者它是从我们凡人物质造物这个进化上去了，它却能够看到我们，并且它能够保留它所从这个进化来的那个层次的能力，它就跟它就是所来的这个层次这是有链接的。像一些的生来就是使者，他是就是说从那个凡人从物质界进化上去的，所以他就跟我们这物质界就有连接。
A 2-year-old or 6-year-old child cannot possibly conceive of what it's like to have an adult mind, but an adult mind has a pretty good understanding of what it's like to have a child mind because they were once a child.
对，就比如说一个2岁的婴儿孩子他很难想象就是大人的心智，但是大人的心智却能够就是孩子的心智，就是能够想象孩子当你2岁的时候大概是什么样的心智。
So because the deities are absolute, they're without beginning, without ending, timeless, spaceless, we sometimes think of them as existing only on the absolute level, way beyond any connection to us, but they actually exist on every level.
对，我们往往就是把神灵啊想成绝对的存在，超越时空的，跟我们没有什么关系。但是实际上，神灵它是各个层次都遍在的。
So this is really a pretty new concept that we get from one of so many new concepts that we get from the Urantia book. This idea of the supreme is that God created the finite universe. He created, he's very much, well, I shouldn't say God because they're talking about the deities. The deities created the finite universe as well as the absolute and the absolute. So they're very much involved in the finite as well as the absolute and the absolute.
对，那么就是这个遍在性呢，就是神灵它就是创造了有限的宇宙和绝限的和绝对的，都是它的。
Just like God has given us our thought adjusters, that's a very supreme function because our thought adjusters are experiencing our life right here, down here with us.
对，那么神给了我们思想调整者，因为他是有非常的至高的功能，那么他相当于就是在这个地方跟我们一起来经历经验。
So the absolute level of reality is characterized by things and beings without beginnings or endings, and by transcendence of time and space. Hold on. But the absolute is beginningless, endless, timeless, spaceless. So there's a difference. They're saying that there's a difference between transcending time and space and timeless and time and space not existing at all. So the absolute level transcends time and space, but the absolute level, there is no time and space.
就觉现层次啊，它有一个好像一个过程啊，一开始就是就是它就是有超越时空，有这样一个动作一样的，但是绝对层次它是无始无终、无时无空，对，它就是没有超越这个动作。
So they're saying that wherever you see finite reality, where there is time and space, you know that the deity is functioning on the supreme level, that the supremacy of deity
当我们说到有限层次的时候，我们就知道它是在神之至高者那个层次，就是神之至高者，他是就是在那个有限层次在那运作。
And whenever you see an absolute level of reality, these are where things and beings, so things and beings exist without beginnings or endings, where time and space is transcended, wherever this absolute reality exists, you know the ultimacy of deity is functioning. That's the ultimate deity is involved with that reality.
说绝限性的时候，那么就是没有开始和终结的，那么就是神灵终极者的行为。
So then they say on the absolute level, is beginningless, endless, timeless, and spaceless. For example, on paradise, time and space are non-existent. The time-space status of paradise is absolute. This level is Trinity attained existentially by the paradise deities. But this third level of I'm just reading. But this third level of unifying deity expression is not fully unified experientially. Whenever, wherever, or however the absolute level of deity functions, paradise absolute values are and meanings are manifest. Okay, so when you get to the paradise level, I was just reading that paragraph again. Now I'm translating. When you get to the paradise level, that's the there is no time, there is no space. It doesn't even exist. It doesn't even exist. You don't have to transcend it because it doesn't even exist. It's non-existent. The only thing is, but this third level of unifying deity expression is not fully unified experientially. So that's a tricky sentence.
对，绝对层次哈，它是跟时空完全没有关系，因为时空都是不存在的，就是它的，这个就是它的就是绝对天堂绝对的价值和意义，但是呢，就是它在经验上并未完全统一，就是在这个绝对层次，在经验上并未完全统一，它是完全跟隔绝经验的。Yeah, because he is at the absolute level, he has no chance to be connected with the experience at all.
Yeah.
Just the existential. It's static, no action, no association,
Well,
nothing.
There may be action, but there's no time and space. So experience seems to be very connected to time and space.
就是这个经验性，它是一定是跟时空这个层次相连接的，所以它在那个无始无终、无时无空的这个层次，它没有办法得到。
There's no past, there's no present, there's no future.
对，如果没有过去、现在、未来，你怎么样获得经验？
So I think that in order to be everything, you have to have different aspects of deity that can function on different levels of reality in order to be everything. Because even I think what they're saying is that even perfection is not perfectly unified with experience. That the two they can't quite be the same thing.
对，就是说，因为即使在这种所谓完美的状态，但是它因为没有跟经验取得统一合一，也是不完美的。其实，就是神灵它有不同的方面了，在它这一面，它就是其实是在经验方面它是不完美的。
I think that they don't try too hard to explain this because it's so hard to explain. But I think the best we can do is to say that God is absolute. The deities are absolute, but to experience other levels, they operate on other levels other than the absolute. Even though they're absolute, they operate on these other levels as well. And that's where they can be unified with experience. The absolute level doesn't have experience, doesn't need experience. It's not unified with experience. It's beyond experience.
对，你就是在那绝对层次吧，你就是， 没有办法获得经验，所以呢，一定要就是创造那个机会啊，要体验其他绝对层次之外的其他的层次。
So it says, going back to the absinthe, it says it's characterized by things and beings without beginnings or endings, and by transcendence of time and space. Absinters are not created; they are eventuated. They simply are. So there are beings in the grand universe, and there are things in the grand universe, things and beings that have no beginnings. I mean, aside from the deities, not the deities are abstinent as well and absolute, but there are other things that are not absolute, but that don't have beginnings. They just always existed.
他说，在那觉现层次，它也是那些的什么存有啊、事物啊，也是没有开头，没有结尾，无始无终的。
Everything in the finite world, in the time-space universe, has a beginning. That is what characterizes time and space. When you have a beginning, you naturally measure time and space because you measure everything from the beginning.
对，有限层次呢，它一定是有始有终的，因为当你说那个时间的时候，一定是有开端的。
Now, when you don't have a beginning, always existed, time has a completely different meaning for you. That's why you transcend time, because you don't really need time anymore, because you don't need to measure. How do you measure how old you were if you always existed? You don't.
对，当你说超越时间的时候，你就是永远存在的时候，你就时间你没有意义了。比如说，如果你总是存在的话，那么你说你多大岁数啦，就没有什么意义。
So it's very difficult for us to conceive of the idea that, well, they can look back and remember things, and then they can look back further, and then they can look back further, and then they can look back further, and then they can look back for, like, there's no beginning. They can look back forever.
对。
But maybe they don't look back. That's the thing. Maybe the idea of looking back is a consciousness of time. Maybe if you transcend time, you don't look back or forward. There is no back, there is no forward. We don't know.
回想啊，回忆啊，这些都是还是时间的概念，意识到有时间的存在。当你不去往后看的，往以前看的时候，你就是没有时间了。
When people have near-death experiences, they often say there was no time. They can't tell you if it took 5 minutes or 5 weeks. They say that what happened is outside of time, but they can tell the story about, well, this happened and then this happened and then this happened. They can tell a story in a sequence, but they can't tell how long or short everything was in our time. It's like there is a kind of a time, but it's totally different than our time.
对，那些在濒死体验当中哈，进入异次元体验的，那么他们也没有办法体验那么告诉说是5天啊，还是5个星期啊什么的。它就是告诉的发生有一定的顺序，但是每一个事件多长多短，那么就是没有这个亮度的感觉。
And then when we try to think of spaceless, for me, it's even more difficult because you go to paradise and it's timeless and spaceless. So what does that mean? You're there, but you're not aware of space, of what's around you, or of where you are. I can't I guess it's very hard for me to understand.
对，就是没有时空，这个也是挺难描述的感觉，就是你没有办法描述你周围有什么，你在哪儿，这个也是很难描述的一个感受。
But when you have spiritual experiences, they're not in space. You're not aware of, you're usually not often, depending on the experience, often you're not aware of space. You're in a completely different reality that has nothing to do with space. So that must be what it's like.
反正就是很难描述就对了。
Okay, so I'll read the next two paragraphs. Deity may be existential, as in the eternal Son, experiential, as in the Supreme Being, associative, as in God the Sevenfold, undivided, as in the Paradise Trinity. Deity is the source of all that which is divine. Deity is characteristically and invariably divine, but all that which is divine is not necessarily deity, though it will be coordinated with deity and will tend toward some phase of unity with deity, spiritual, mindal, or personal. Okay.
神灵可能是存在性的，如永恒之子；是经验性的，如至高存在者；是关联性的，如神之七重者；是不可分割的，如天堂三位一体。神灵是所有神圣事物的源头，神灵是神圣的，这是他们的特征，且一贯如此。但并非所有神圣的东西都一定是神灵，尽管它将与神灵相协调，并趋向于与神灵合一的某些层次，即灵性、心智或人格方面。
Okay, so the next section is about divinity. So they're going to talk more about divinity, but they're setting it up by saying that everything that is divine is not deity, but wherever you have deity, you have divinity.
对，下半段这个第一部分下半部分就是讲这个神性的，就是说这个神灵绝对所有神圣事物的源头，神灵是神圣的，但是并非神圣的一定是神灵。
And when something is divine, there is some phase of unity with deity, spiritual, mindal, or personal. So even though you could when you have divinity or something is divine, it's not necessarily deity. It has some kind of unification with deity.
对，那么说这是某个事物是神圣的，就它一定是趋向于与神灵合一的某些层次、某些特征。
So they say deity is the source of all that which is divine. So where anything that's divine emanates, comes from deity.
对，那么神灵是所有神圣事物的源头。说某事物是神圣的，那么一定它的源头是从神灵来。
You can't have divinity something cannot be divine unless it comes from deity.
某事物不可能是神圣的，如果它不是从神灵而来。
Okay, now I'm going to read the part about where they explain what divinity is in more detail.
下面就是神性的一些更那个的特征。
Okay, I'll read this whole section. The whole last section of section 1 is about divinity. Okay, divinity is the characteristic, unifying, and coordinating quality of deity. Divinity is creature comprehensible as truth, beauty, and goodness, correlated in personality as love, mercy, and ministry, disclosed on impersonal levels as justice, power, and sovereignty. Divinity may be perfect, complete, as on existential and creator levels of paradise perfection. It may be imperfect, as on experiential and creature levels of time-space evolution, or it may be relative, neither perfect nor imperfect, as on certain Havona levels of existential experiential relationships. When we attempt to conceive of perfection in all phases and forms of relativity, we encounter 7 conceivable types. Number 1, absolute perfection in all aspects. Number 2, absolute perfection in some phases and relative perfection in all other aspects. Number 3, absolute, relative, and imperfect aspects in varied association. Number 4, absolute perfection in some respects, imperfection in all others. Number 5, absolute perfection in no direction, relative perfection in all manifestations. Number 6, absolute perfection in no phase, relative in some, imperfect in others. Number 7, absolute perfection in no attribute, imperfection in all. Okay.
神性是神灵典型、统一和协调的品质。神性对受造物来说，可理解为真、美和善，在人格中可关联为爱、慈悲和侍奉，在非人格层面可解释为公正、力量和主权。神性可能是完美的、完整的，如存在性和造物者层次的天堂完美，它可能是不完美的，如在时空进化的经验性和受造物层面，或者它可能是相对的，既不完美也不完美，如在存在性经验性关系的某些哈沃纳层次。当我们试图在相对性的所有面向和形式中构想完美时，我们遇到了7种可构想的类型： 1. 在所有面向都绝对完美； 2. 在某些面向绝对完美，在所有其他方面相对完美； 3. 在各种关联方面绝对、相对和不完美； 4. 在某些面向绝对完美，在所有其他方面不完美。5. 没有任何方面绝对完美，在所有彰显中都相对完美。6. 没有任何面向绝对完美，在某些方面相对完美，在其他方面不完美。7. 没有属性绝对完美，所有属性都不完美。
Okay, so you're done? No.
Yeah, I just remember the last paragraph. At the absolute level, the paradise is not fully unified experientially. I just saw this Havana. Havana is not unified experientially because it's relative, absolute, perfect.
Yeah, I see what you're.
I just remember
see
that.
Yeah, or it may be relative, neither perfect nor imperfect, as on certain Havana levels of existential. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
As on certain Havana levels, they're saying, yeah, because we think that Havana was created perfect, but they're saying here, they're saying it's neither perfect nor imperfect, but they're saying on certain Havana levels of existential, experiential relationships. So I think they're saying that, well, first of all, they're saying, okay, go ahead, Ricky.
对，第一段他不就是说到神性就是他这个完美的程度嘛，就是在完美的那么例子就是存在性和造物者层次的天堂完美，那么神性达到了最完美的，那么是神性呢，它有但是又不完美呢，就是可以在时空进化的层次。相对的呢，也不完美，也不完美，就是在存在性、经验性关系的某些哈瓦那层次，是某些哈瓦那层次。
They may be talking about because they're saying on certain Havana levels of existential experiential relationships. I think that you can't, I think anything experiential is probably not totally perfect. That's my guess. And mortals, creatures, go to Havana. We live on, there's 1 billion worlds in Havana, and we live on every one of them before we go to paradise. So when we are living on those worlds, we are still experiencing things. For us, it's part of our experience, and the Havana natives are now engaging in experience with experiential beings. So, I mean, they're probably absentite beings. I think the Havana natives are absentite. I don't think they have beginnings. I'm not sure. But when they relate to us then they're having experiential, they're experiencing a different level of reality when they're interacting with, I'm just guessing, but I'm thinking maybe when they interact with experiential beings, then it's no longer perfect, but it's not imperfect or perfect.
他就说我们最终都会去哈瓦那的，那么生活在那个很多那个地方，很多的时间，就是要去挨个去尝试。他说那个哈瓦那还有一些的，就原来天生他就在哈瓦那的，那些他说有可能是那个局限性的存有，就无始无终的，就是他跟我们连接，然后是不是就得到不同层次的实相，经验不同层次的实相。他说这个经验性层次永远没有办法说它是完美。
It may not be only when they interact with finite material. Well, we're spiritual. We're no longer material by the time we get to Havana, but we're still we come from the finite universe. We're still we're time space beings. Maybe we eventually become abstinite. Well, we can never be abstinite because we'll always have beginnings. So we'll always have we'll always be, I guess we'll always be finite because we'll always have beginnings. We can't change that. But well, I'll let you translate that.
对，他说，当我们进化到哈瓦那那个层次，那么我们就肯定都不是那种物质性质的，但是我们就那样的话也是不能够改变我们是时空造物的有开始这个事实，所以我们应该不属于那个觉现层次。
But I'm just saying that I'm just qualifying that if there are certain aspects of Havona that are neither perfect nor imperfect, I'm guessing that those might be those might have to do with interacting with finite beings like us, but not that's just a guess. They may have there may be other aspects of Havona that are neither perfect nor imperfect. They may have their own type of experiential reality. I don't know.
他也不太确定，就是这句话什么意思啊？他认为也许这个就是存在经验性关系的哈瓦那层次，也指的是我们，指的是我，就是那些局限那些那个哈瓦那层次的，本来就从那儿诞生的，它那局限性的生物跟我们，这种有那个相互关系之后，然后所在的那个层次。
Divinity is so divinity is the unifying and coordinating quality of deity. So deity just exists. It's just a deity is a thing, but a divinity, but divinity is characteristic of how deity unites and coordinates.
对，神性的表达的是神灵是怎么样统一啊、协调，是这方面的特质。
So this is a nice sentence. Divinity is creature comprehensible, so comprehensible to us as truth, beauty, and goodness. Correlated in personality as love, mercy, and ministry. Disclosed on impersonal levels as justice, power, and sovereignty. So all the they say this elsewhere in the book too, that truth, beauty, and goodness can be manifested in a personality as love, mercy, and ministry. And then you can see it on an impersonal level as justice, power, and sovereignty. Oh, power, that's interesting. Justice, power, and sovereignty. So I thought they were going to say truth, justice. I didn't know it would be power and sovereignty. So that's interesting.
他就说这个神性啊，造物，对我们来就是理解为就是真美善的，这都是神性的表现。然后人格中可表现为就是也是爱呀、慈悲啊、侍奉啊，就这些特质都是这个人格神性的表现。 这是在非人格层面，它的可接受为公正、力量和主权。这个他觉得有一点出乎他的意料。
But I suppose act divinity is very powerful and very sovereign.
神性可以说非常有力量的，有全能的，也是非常的有说话权。
Okay, I'm going to take a few minutes, just a few minutes. You can
Great.
either talk
Okay.
talk to each other or take a break yourselves. I'll be
Yes.
right back.
Okay. Sure. Go ahead.
对，我正好对这个impersonal 的翻译，我觉得非人格这个不太好理解，就是我觉得它这里应该是非个人的，因为非人格就有点，就是草木它也是，动物
对，
也是非
人格就是一个
人格的。
概念，但是就是他这个格就应该是在个人，我觉得是应该是
对
个人，翻成个人
对，
比较。
非个人层面，因为非人格的东西很多，但是如果这里跟那个就公正，这主权联系起来，对
对，它更是一个社会的表象，对吧？
对
社会是
是的，
个人组成的嘛，
对，
所以它这
这样更好理
个社会
解。
整个一个集体的层面，那是公正力量和主权，就是更 make sense。对，是的。等一下，我来停一下录制哈，一会儿如果没有录制，你要提醒我一下。
Okay, we're back. So they're basically saying that hold on, is Karen? Hold on. So they're saying divinity may be perfect, complete. It may be imperfect. Or it may be relative, neither perfect nor imperfect. So divinity is not perfection, but it usually it involves some level, some type of perfection. Like when we think of perfect, we usually think that something is absolutely perfect. They're saying no, perfection is relative. You can have some perfection all the way up to a little perfection, more perfection, some perfection, to all the way up to complete perfection. They're saying that there's all different levels of perfection, but divinity usually has some level of perfection.
对，那个是神性，就是提到这个完美这个词，我们往往认为完美就是完全的、完整的完美，但是呢，这个地方3.5这一段就是说，这个完美它也是分层次的，是相对的，有相对层次的完美。它更是一个过程，更是一个趋向完美的过程，一个动态的东西。
Go on. So then we read about the 7 different levels of perfection. So that's just interesting because we always, as I just said, we tend to think of perfection as one thing, flawless, perfect in every way. And they're saying, no, there's all different levels of perfection.
对，那么它下面呢就给出了7种类型的完美啊，对，就是这个完美不是完全无瑕疵的意思，而是在有相对性的这7种类型。
So, and they're saying that divinity is imperfect on divinity is imperfect on experiential and creature levels of time space evolution. So that means that for us, divinity, when we have divinity on our level, let's say we're experiencing truth, beauty, and goodness, or someone is showing love, mercy, and ministry. That's not perfection. That's relative perfection. We would call it more like goodness, beauty, goodness. These aren't perfection, but they're bit of perfection in them, I think.
Yeah， 对，那就是在我们，比如说在我们受造物的层次呢，就是这个神性，它就是相对的完美。比如说有一个人要是表现出真善美来，那么我们就说他这个人正在向完美、向神性完美努力的方向上努力。
So anything that comes from God must have a little perfection in it, because God is absolutely perfect.
对，任何来自于神的，那么一定有一定程度的完美性，因为神是那个绝对的完美。
But the further it gets from paradise or the absolute God, less perfect it becomes less and less perfect as it goes through the different levels of reality. So it's like we're seeing perfection, but we're seeing it through like a kind of a hazy lens.
对，那么离天堂岛离这个哈瓦那越远呢，它这个就是往下就是经历不同层次的实相，那么这个完美的程度就越来越差，就像通过一个那个带雾的镜头看一样，不那么清晰了。
So we can experience divinity. We can experience on our level, on the finite level, but we can't experience. Well, I think maybe we can, but we have to transcend this level in order to do it. Hold on one second.
对，我们可以在我们的层次来体现、体会、体验神性啊、神灵啊，但是在我们这有限的层次，大概我们就是要稍微超越一下，才能够去体会这个神性和神灵。这也让我想起来圣经当中啊，他总是说我们的义行啊，就不管我们认为我们是多么的那个有公义，那么都是破烂的衣服，就披在身上都是破烂的衣服。只有神的公义，以神的公义为义，那么才是把那个义算成我们的义，那么我们就相当于披上这个基督的这个洁白无瑕的外衣作为我们的义，那才是真正的义。如果我们以自己的义为义，那么都是破烂的衣服。因为大概在我们这个有限的受造物的层次，怎么样也没有办法完全体验、完全活出来神性那个完美的义，完美的这个 divinity。
这里我是不是可以理解，就受造物，我们理解神性，就把它理解为真美善。那么我们表达神性的时候，就 实际上表达出来就是真美善。它是不完美的，但这是我们的表达，是吧？
我们理解这个神性就是真美善，就是真美善的事物，它一定是有神性的，是神圣的。这是我们的理解。然后呢，它再下一句是如果我们想活出这个真美善呢，在我们人格的层次、个人的characteristic 就可以表现为这个人很有爱啊，非常有慈悲心啊，愿意服务他人啊，这些特质就是它里边的神性的表现。
Okay, I'm back.
就这个层次，这些表达对神性的表达，它就是不完美的层次。不完美。
我们所认为我们这样做是非常慈悲的，我们这样做是在侍奉他人，我们根据我们对神性的理解去试图彰显我们的内里的神性。但是我们这个因为我们的理解的层次啊，或者是神性就没达到那个层次嘛，所以我们
对，
往往
我们
就是
所
不完美的，
表达的神性是不
一
完美的。
定是不完美的。因为我们这个 comprehension 啊，对这个 understanding 啊，这个 recognition 整个的是 cognition 是不够的。对神的认知，我们怎么能在有限受造物的层次对造物主，对他真正的想要我们达到的真善美有完全的理解呢？这是不可能的，只能是我们在不停的在朝向对他的真善美有更完善的理解的这种道路上而已，就是个过程。
对，因为我原来理解这种不完美是相对完美，但实际上它都还没有达到相对完美，它就是不完美。因为到哈瓦那的某些层次，它才是相对完美。但其实，在我们这个层次就是不完美的。
对，我们怎么样也不可能表达 complete divinity。
对，就是我们都还没有达到这个相对完美的这个程度。
对，
就更谈不上完整的完美。
我还试图去排证，这7个怎么个这7个？反正 anyway 再听那个 Heidi 讲吧。Heidi。
Yeah, I'm back. My animals wanted to come in and out again.
We are confused about how these 7 combinations.
Okay. Did when I put you on when I went on hold, did I finish? Was I in the middle of a thought or did I finish a thought?
Finish thought.
Okay. I didn't want to leave someone going, she never finished that sentence. Okay, so tell me what you're confused about.
How these 7 types actually exhaust all possible combinations.
Well, I think when we attempt to conceive of perfection in all phases and forms of relativity, we encounter 7 conceivable types. I think it's pretty basic. I think they're just saying that you can have all perfection, no perfection, and then 5 different combinations of perfection and imperfection.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm going to do it myself. Yeah, I think I can do it. Yeah, it is almost like the 7 super universe, the how Trinity, different aspect of Trinity characterized each super universe. Yeah, it is a combination. It's a kind of mathematical thing.
Yeah, or you could think of it as the 7 psychic circles too. Right, you're starting at completely imperfect, and then your each psychic level is a little more perfect.
No, we're talking about different things, but anyway, yeah, just start your the 7 type. Yeah.
No, we're talking about completely different things.
Right.
I'm saying that that it can apply to completely different things. It can apply to the 7 super universes. It can, the 7 master spirits, the fact that it's 7, I think you made a good point that the fact that it's 7 is probably significant.
Yes, 7 also denotes completion.
Completion?
Yeah, 7, the number of 7.
Oh, you mean in Chinese?
No, it's kind of in numerology,
Oh.
7 denotes a completion. It's
Are you saying compassion or completion?
completion.
Completion.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting because it seems like in the Urantia book, the number 7 definitely connotes completion, right? There's the 7 super universes, 7 psychic circles, 7 master spirits. Yeah.
对，7这个数字，我就说呀，在数字学上是表示完美、完善、完整、完成。那个像，对呀，神之7重者啦，7个超级宇宙啦，什么还有什么7？他刚才有提到，超过7个是就是那个我们的这个7个心灵圆圈啊。都表达的是一个完成、完善的意思。
But somewhere in the book, it does say that the numbers have spiritual, like number 3 and the number 7 are have deep spiritual significance.
对啊，像3啊、7啊都有很深的灵性的意义。
And then when you get to the finite world, the number 10 is very significant.
在有限的造物的层次呢，10呢又是。
all the numbers of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
10就是有，在我们的这个有限层次，10是有非常大的灵性的意义。
All the numbers like there's 1,000 planets in the system and there's 10 million in a they're all decimals of 10. When you get to the finite world, there's the number 10 is very, very significant, and it's very, I don't know about if Chinese has a different system, but 10 is very significant in our numbering system too, in the finite world.
对，比如说什么，就是在我们系统当中有1000个什么星球，还是可居住星球，还是咋地？对，那些名字嘛，就是大概都是10进制的，就是这个宇宙它这个什么什么，对，10应该在我们的在我们的文化当中，10也是圆满的意思，对啊，3加7等于10。
So I mean I just think it's interesting that I said it twice already, so I'll say it one more time. But I just think it's interesting that they're pointing out that perfection is not absolute, except unless it's absolute perfection. That our concept of perfection is more like if something's perfect, it's absolutely perfect. It has no flaws. But they're saying no, that's not even close. You can have 7 different levels of perfection.
对，那么这个概念这个地方强调的就是完美，它不是绝对的完美，有着不同的层次的区别。
Like we wouldn't describe, if we describe someone as perfect, we wouldn't say, well, he's relatively perfect. I mean, we would if we're trying to be funny or catchy, but we don't usually think of perfection in relative terms here, but they're saying perfection is a relative thing.
对，那我们说完美，往往就是最好的了。没有，我们从来不会说啊，它是相对的完美。可是这个地方就是给我们这个概念，这个完美的相对性。
Now, this next section is God, which is another heavy duty section.
对，第二部，这篇，文章第二部分是关于神的，是另外的一个，就是也是非常重的内容。Yeah, we are not able to proceed to God today.
We're not going to tackle God today.
今天不去触碰这一部分。对，时间。
我还有一点时间，是不是海蒂还有一点时间？想请他解释一下 eventuate 这个究竟是什么意思？
这个概念。
对 eventuate，就是
在哪个地方？
终极者它是中规化的嘛，但是不太理解这个中规化是什么意思。就 the ultimate deity is eventuate, is not created, is eventuate.
Yeah.
1.10，就是讲那个 ultimate 的时候，就是那个eventuate，不知道究竟是指的什么。还有这个 obsolete level 的时候讲到那个 eventuate。
I think she's talking about God the sevenfold.
No, I just asked the word
eventuated. How does that mean? It's mentioned in 1.10, the ultimate.
Yeah, that's another word like absonite. That's a word that the Urantia book has to come up with because we don't have a word for it. We don't have a word for eventuated. We have event and we have eventual, but we don't have eventuated. They created this word to describe something that we don't know about in our reality event. I'm just going to confirm it by looking it up, but I'm sure. Oh no, we do have it. Okay, let's see what they say. Eventuated, to come out finally, result, come about. It's not a word you hear very often, I'll tell you that much. It means to come out finally, result, come about. So it's like eventual, but it's like the result.
它是一个最终的意思，就形容词 eventual 嘛，然后 eventuate 相当于一个动作了，就是最终结果是什么？中规化这个地方我们是翻译成中规化。
Okay, so I'm looking at the dictionary and it says that it's a very controversial word in English. But you have to
在英文
realize,
当中也是一个富有争议的词儿。
but you have to realize this book was written 100 years ago.
这本书是在100年前写的嘛，100年前传导的。
Yes, it's controversial because some people don't like, some linguists don't like the word but for some reason there's a lot of linguists that don't like the word. I like it.
对，一些语言学家不喜欢这个词儿。
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great word. Okay, so, but it's not used often. But yeah, it means to come about, to have like like the result eventuated. It's it,
就是终结啊，发生啊，就是最终显化呀，就这样的意思。
and if they're using it in relation to the ultimate, remember we were just reading about the ultimate, and the ultimate seemed to be intricately related to the absonite. So the ultimate seems to be a reality of a reality that has to do with things and beings that have no beginning and no end. They just exist. They always were.
对，神之终极者，它是跟那个觉现性实相相关联的。你相当于就是说跟那个无始无终的这个实相关联的。
So I'd have to see where they use the word eventuated, but I think it has to, I think they use it in terms of something that is absonite. I think.
In the one in this
Oh, I see the
one-
eventuating God. I see it right here.
Yeah.
God the ultimate, the eventuating God of super time and transcended space. The second experiential level of unifying deity manifested. God, the ultimate, implies attained realization of the synthesized absonite, superpersonal, time, space, transcended, and eventuated experiential values. Yeah, they're using it in a different way in this book. They're kind of saying it always was. I think they're kind of using it in a way that means kind of well, they used the word in the part we just read about deity and divinity too. They used the absonite level. The absoniters are not created, they are eventuated. They simply are. See, they're using it in a completely different way than we use the word in English. They are eventuated. In other words, we don't talk about things that are eventuated here. We don't talk about absonite. We don't talk about things that have no beginning here. They're saying they have no beginning. They simply are. They are eventuated. They're using it in a completely different way.
啊，对，那么这一块的中规化跟我们语言当中的最终显化显示出来的，就是那完全不是一个意思。这块中规化它是无始无终的。我们的语言当中，因为都是时空当中的用语嘛，好像是最终事情发生了，结果发生了，对，这个跟原来的意思就不一样了。这个就是我们要，对，在局限层次，这本来就是，你看这个地方本来就是无始无终的事物和存有。
Yeah, it's very, I think that whenever you see the word eventuated, you're going to see the word absonite. I think ultimate, absonite, and eventuated are going to always be together.
对，他说这个神之终极者呀，然后觉现性的实相啊，还有中规化呀，这些词就是往往就是连在一块儿的。
So they're using the word to mean like you, in other words, we were created because we're finite beings, and an absonite being is eventuated. They're using it in relation to, they're not created, They are eventuated. They are the result, what happens, what came about, what happened, but there was no beginning. So they always were. They were so they're saying they were eventuated. They're it's like they're trying to describe how they came into existence, but they didn't come into existence because they always were in existence.
对，就是相对于我们这有限层次的实相，就是我们是有开始的，是被创造出来的。那么在觉现性的实相，那么就是没有开始的，它们始终存在的。
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult concept for us to wrap our little heads around.
是很难，我们这小小的有限的头脑很难理解的概念。
就是那个 ultimate 跟 eventuated，好像是同义词是吧？感觉
他就说，往往这些词啊都连在一块儿，就是描写就是神之终极者的时候，往往就会有这个 eventuated 终归化，然后它所对应的实相就是 absolute 绝现性的实相。
因为这个汉语翻译成终归化，就好像有一个过程，但实际上是没有过程的。
对，
所以我觉得终归化这个翻译可能是有问题的。
那也没办法，因为字典上大概就是这样子的意思。
那或者可以说是终归的，就是说并没有化，就代表有一种变化嘛，有一种好像有一个变化的过程，但实际上
它的确是一个动词啊。
但是它就是 simply are 嘛 ，simply are 就没有一个变化的过程。
那也得尊重这个英文的意思啊。英文的 eventuated 就是事件化。这个 Google Translate 说事件化 eventuated。
对，那个
终归化
不是说就是这里用的这个 eventuated 跟一般用的这个是不一样的用。
他们是，那你，他们是，那你先弄查，你说要是显化的，那么
终归的
显化是 manifest。
终归或终极的，就是跟 ultimate 这个词的意思特别像，是不是？
终极化的，你说把它改成终极化的，
终归的，或者就去掉这个化呢？
终归的，但是它这个 eventuated，它实在有一个动作的意思啊，化也没有错呀。
或者说就是终极的，翻译成终极的呢？
终极吧。
Okay, what are you saying about it?
We are talking about the proper words to translate eventuated.
Yeah, I don't know how you translate it because it's kind of it's like a Urantia word, it's really pretty unique. I've never heard it used this way.
对，他也没有看到这个词这么个用法过。在这个表达的意思跟我们三维世界的那个意思不大一样。
I mean, timeless, you could say maybe timeless. But
终极的，可是这个地方已经是终极的了，就是 ultimate 是我们已经翻成终极的了。那么这个地方如果还是我们有个化来代表它不是 ultimate 没有词，那也可以啊。好，
代表它是个动词。
至少这样的话，让大家对 ultimately 和 eventuated 有个联系。
对，这样好像更连接多一些。
Okay.
I mean, it's funny because we can conceive of the idea of infinity, of eternity, I mean, it's not that hard for us to conceive of the idea of having no ending, of just continuing with no ending. But it's much harder for us to think of having no beginning.
对，就是说我们理解没有终结，可能比较还可以理解，但是说没有开始，就比较难理解。
But really, it's, you know, it should be just as easy. I mean, it's really the same thing, just in reverse, you know. But for some reason, it's because we have a beginning, it's much harder for us to imagine something without a beginning.
对，因为我们是有开始的，所以我们很难理解。没有开始是什么样的那个？让我想起那个孔子说的那三季人，对吧？那蚱蜢他就没有经历过冬天，所以在他的生命当中只有3个季节，他确实那个就是真理。很难想象还有4个季节。对，这是我们经验的这个局限了。是。Yeah. OK.
夏虫不可语冰。
是的。冰是什么概念？反正头脑里没有，那我们就很难理解什么叫没有开始。So
Okay, I guess.
next time talk about God. That's another fascinating section. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Heidi.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
So next week we'll take on God.
下一次我们又把神拿起来了。
By the end of next session, we'll completely understand God.
啊，对，下一次我们就会去全面的了解神了。Yeah.
好。